Welcome to the Creative Vulnerability Series debut open mic. Today is day 22 of the Creative Vulnerability Series that I created to help creatives feel less lonely and be more clear and realistic about the creative process. And yeah. All right. Let me invite a few people. Hi, Brenda. All right, so I'm going to kick off with two poems by me. One is called Cooking a Poem, that's based on my. Yeah, you can go ahead and request to join, and I will let you up after I read this first poem. This is called Cooking a Poem, that's inspired by one of the prompts by Nopal Flower Mariana, which in turn was inspired by one of my posts on my creative process. This is called Cooking a Poem. Sesame opened the salty page, turned sour grapes into word wines, brew pale facts into colorful ale of a tale. This moment has a kick to it, but a little bit of lemon, cucumber, and the right fats can shift it from bland hot to tasty spicy. Maybe the right word peppers can help too. Sometimes in the heat of the moment, it's hard to see the rainbow in the sizzling oil of words, but with patience and preparation, we get just the right amount of colors and savoriness. And that's Cooking a Poem. This is kind of like my ode to creativity itself and my creative process. Yeah. And then since it's National Poetry Month and I have a lot of poets and writers among the creative audience that I have, this is an ode to poetry. Hi, Libra Mobile. An ode to poetry. This is inspired by Audre Lorde's observation in her essay Age, Race, Class, and Sex that poetry can be a very equalizing force because of how little resources you need to write a poem usually, as well as very little time. You need very little energy and time. So it's great for busy people and stuff. Sandwich in the subway, mouth open in shock at unwanted touch, no money for counseling, no time for processing, no notebook with me. I do have this customer receipt with me, so I scribble something there showing myself what I feel so that I at least have my heart and soul and paper mirror as witness and reflection, even if no one believes me. Later, oh wow, what a marvelous way to be loved like this. My every muscle, every movement towards them and away from them was not just felt, but deeply heard and so honored. I felt so touched. My petals around my mouth flew naturally to the nectar of their magnetic compassion, and my enthusiasm returned with slow maple syrup, moving towards me surely, but always fully engaged with my every response. I don't even have anything to write down this momentous memory except this chewing gum wrapper from the gum I had savored earlier to be fully prepared for this moment. And sometimes on some nights, my forehead is pulsing with tension. After a long day's work, my arms just droop into this pool of a bed. I have no time, except for a few words. But thanks to the goddess of poetry, it is enough. And that's my poem, The Nectar of the Magnetic. Ooh, those words. Yes, thank you, Iris. Yeah, all right, so you may now request to be on the mic, and I will let you on. It's now open to the floor. The floor is now open. The stage is now open to other poets and creatives. All right, I have a request. We have Brenda. Hello.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning. Thanks for holding our space here.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And we have another request. You're fine with bringing them up too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
One of my faves.
All right.
Oh, thank you, Iris. Yeah, I love this. This was handmade. I'm not sure. Friends keep giving me earrings, so I'm not sure where this one's from.
Hi, Iris.
Morning. Hi, how are you?
Good.
That's good. I love your earrings, Brenda. I really.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
They
I
are
appreciate that.
cute.
Yeah, they're cuties, right? I love them.
Yeah, it's really nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Iris. Looking forward to hearing your poetry.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Do you want?
So, while more people join in, and it lets Instagram lets more people know about the live, I think before you share your poems, since it's nice to wait for more of an audience, let's just have each of you talk about your creative process and how you go about creating things.
Okay. I'd love to hear Brenda. You can go first if you want. I gotta get my throat open.
Yeah, no worries. Let me grab a sip of coffee here.
See, you get it. You get it.
We're doing the same. So yeah, I love talking about creative process. I love what you said about cooking a poem. I love the image of adding the peppers will make it taste better, right? That was so cool and completely relatable. Yeah, the way I've been writing poems for a good chunk of time now has been I do it out loud. So I've mentioned this to you before, Kundan, that I write poems out loud, using my audio memo, usually when I'm going for a walk. So I take it as an active meditation. It's really hard to write in my house because I live with family and my family's, active and loud and always a lot going on in the house. So I try to find that solitary time, and it's become in my daily walk. So I write out loud. I let it sit for some time. I might listen to it immediately after, but I do let it sit, and then I transcribe the poem. And maybe I transcribe the whole thing, but the whole thing may not be a poem. There might just be the start or a seed of a poem in there. And then I just kind of like massage it until it becomes something else. But for sure with my first collection of poetry, that is how I did it. And I think I might experiment a little bit more with different forms for my next collection. So that's going to be a lot more massaging, because I'm loving reading prose poetry lately. I think I write in a very prosaic way anyway. I write a lot of narrative or lyrical poetry. So it'll be fun to see what comes out next. But that's what I do. And I think sometimes I do it in the kitchen too. I love what you said about cooking. I cook for my family quite a bit. So I think that's why I love the images in your work, the lime, the cilantro, like all of that. It's when you're cooking, that is a good place to like seed a poem, right? Begin a poem. Your hands are busy, so you could turn on the recorder. You know, that's what I do sometimes. Might be a little bit dangerous with the fire, but that keeps it interesting.
Right.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know some people even do audio journaling where they, instead of writing, they just speak their thoughts into their recorder, and that helps them hear their thoughts, you know. So it can be more effective for some people. But yeah, so sometimes I also use the metaphor of growing a poem, like from a seed to a sprout to a, sapling to a tree. But I wrote this poem, Cooking a Poem, because the way I cook and the way I write a poem has similarities in the sense that for me, the most frustrating part of cooking is the preparation, right? The cutting up the vegetables and things like that. So what I do is I do the preparation long before I need it. I have a separate time for cutting up vegetables and things, and then I put them in boxes so that when it's time for me to make food, like make a salad or cook something, everything's just ready, right? So that's how I do it. And similarly with poetry, like I do the preparation before I actually write. Like I collect these, I call them collecting poetry grapes and poetry berries, and in the forest of poetry by going to the bookstore or even my own bookshelf and writing down the verses that I like the most out of different poems. And then I set a separate time for incubation, for rest, and then I come back. And by that time, the words have already simmered, right? It's like simmering, right? Letting it simmer down. And sometimes when we cook, like with beans and stuff, it takes hours to simmer it, right? With the low heat. So it's very similar. It just simmers for a long time. So that by the time I come back, it's just ready, ready to be finished.
Right.
I love that.
Right.
Yeah, I think
Sounds
that's
like a whole-
so smart with food prep and poetry prep. I think that's absolutely brilliant. I might have to try that. I love it.
It's very inclusive. It's very
All right, Iris.
So for me, my process, I think as of lately, it's a little bit in and out. I've noticed that sometimes, yesterday was a really interesting part of my process because I was sitting in the car, waiting for my friend to get back, and I started randomly just getting these. Sometimes they just randomly hit me, these words, and I'll have to like scramble them around my head. But it got to the point where I'm a very psychic, spiritual person. It got to the point where as I was writing the lyrics out and I was thinking over like what would work together, and I was making my eliminations of like which words just sound good when I say them out loud or not. I also get like these visions. And yesterday was like no exception. It was like while I was writing, I started getting some very vivid descriptions in my head and like images. And then afterwards, I did a reading for myself just to see what was going on. And literally everything that I wrote in the poem, I saw reflected in the cards. So it was I felt like I kind of unlocked something because I've noticed something about myself. When I get really close to wanting to give up a craft or just not wanting to do it, I don't know why, but I always get this download and I start to write even better poems every single time. Another part of my process as of lately has been, instead of really taking time to sit down and write a poem, what I'll do is I'll just get random lines throughout the weeks, the months. In my case, I've been performing all the stuff that I've done for the past 2 years. And maybe one day I might randomly have the urge to put all of these random things together and see what story I want to write for it. So it doesn't even start off with me saying, I'm upset, I want to write about being upset. Some days it's literally just, I have a bunch of these random lines just in my notebook and I want to stitch. It's kind of like sewing. I'm stitching random stuff together and trying to see what I can make out of it. It's really cool, but I think sometimes it does kind of make me wonder well, what if I actually want to write to like a prompt? What if I want to do it wholeheartedly in one setting? Do I have the chops for that? But I've learned to love it though, because it's helped me create some of the most detailed poems that I've ever made. Prior to 2 years ago, everything was very personal narrative, like today I just feel sad and I want to talk about this. But now it's like I'm almost building like little worlds inside of my poems when I stitch random things together. And it may sound random to somebody who isn't used to hearing me, but it sounds perfectly like related in each of my poems. I don't know how to describe it. It's like I'm world building. That's the best way I can describe it, actually. It's the best way for it to breathe.
Yeah, I get that. It's like that's similar to my process when I'm collecting like the verses that I like out of the poems that I like. It's like each verse is a thread, right? And then and I'm letting the incubation part of it start weaving those threads together, in the background. That's what I'm doing when I'm letting it just simmer, right? That's similarly when I do the more elaborate process, when I write a whole mind map of different topics, that's also me like letting that mind map, because now I can see it visually. Then I just let those threads like go together, and that's why also a lot of my poems I realized recently is like a list poem, but it's not exactly. Because I looked up list poems, I'm like, oh, that's a list poems, and my poems are not exactly list poems, but there's like a sequence. Because I'm very like methodical about it. I'm like, I think about a list of topics first, and I want to put them in like a logical sequence.
Right. You want
Yeah,
it to make
yeah,
some sense, but like sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes the things that don't make sense, they actually make the most sense. I don't know why that
exactly.
is. I think sometimes the poems almost like in that sense they kind of speak for themselves.
Hmm.
And you
Yeah.
almost are like just you're almost just like, I don't want to say a vessel, because I don't even think it's as simple as being a vessel. I think it's more like a so I think a vessel, it flows through you, but a translator, I think like Brenda was saying, it's like you literally are translating what is being vesseled out of you. Yeah.
Yeah, especially for you, it sounds like you feel the energies first, and you are almost like a transmuter that puts those energies into words.
Oh yeah, especially because I have synesthesia, so there will be
Oh, I have it
days.
too. Yeah.
You do, yeah. Like it's like certain words have to go together. Even if I don't want to put them
Mm,
together, the poem would be like, nope, we're doing it this way.
mm,
So, but even then, I still learn something about it. It's sometimes it almost feels like the poem teaches you, without you necessarily needing to ask for permission to do so. And I think I'm getting to a point where I'm just allowing it to just teach me without me needing to initiate anything. That's a really big thing for
mm.
me right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What type of synesthesia do you have?
A lot. So,
Okay. Because I know some people see music and colors or numbers of personalities, things like that. I see emotions and colors sometimes, so that's my synesthesia.
oh, you see
Yeah.
emotions? Oh, that's really,
Hmm.
really, really cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so I have a lot. One of the ways that it shows up, if I don't like a person, I will get their scent very strongly. Even if other people can't smell it, I can smell it really distinctly.
Uh,
Um, I also, I do the, I definitely have the, I can smell colors and I can see music things. I also noticed that I have at this point a really strong memory. I can remember very specific conversations I've had from years ago. Um, I can recognize patterns really quickly. So one of the things that happens to me spiritually is I see a lot of repeating numbers all the time, to the point where I expect it to happen. I specifically see the number 19 and 25 like together all the time. And whenever I get it now, I always get a sound. And I've noticed though, I don't know if you've noticed this, but as I get older, the synesthesia gets more intense. So I do have a lot of anxiety because of it. It's sometimes hard. I get a lot of I can't be online for long periods of time because I get a lot of sensory overload. Um, I also have to make sure I go outside at this point, because if I just stay inside, I will not, I won't be very happy. I don't know how to just, well, no, I won't be very, it's like I can literally hear my emotions in my head, but it's not words. It's like a weird sound. And sometimes I'm able to translate that through my music, sometimes. But most of the time, it's like this weird ringing in my ear. So it can be very frustrating, but it's helped me so much with my craft, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why I say that there's more than five senses. In fact, there was a woman who came up with the model of the 54 senses. So, yeah. So we have Nopal requesting, would you all like her? You're okay with bringing her on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
Mama missed.
Birthday a week before.
Hello.
Hi, you guys.
Hello.
I'm
Hey.
sideways because I have headphones on.
Hey.
Oh, hey.
I can't put this any other way. But anyways, I'm just listening in right now. I love the synesthesia that you were speaking of, Love, and that's just it's such an interesting thing of like what it alters or what it heightens. It's like, the other sixth sense that maybe people don't speak of too much about. And so I'm still learning it from all of you. So, like Blue Lotus was probably the first one who spoke of their synesthesia because they see color. And so yeah. But anyways, I have my book, like my draft book. So I'm in the lobby right now, but anyways, whenever we're ready for me to talk about my process, I'm ready.
Yeah, and they were just finishing about talking the
Oh,
creative process, so it's your turn. Yeah.
okay. All right. So in regards to mine, sometimes lines of a poem that'll start getting created will come to me from my dreams. That's one way that I get it. There was a time in a shift where I wasn't getting that type of creativeness, just because I was dealing with a lot of stuff. But now it's starting to come back, where I'll dream poetry, and which is really great to be able to receive that one line and then wake up and be either in an urgency of having to write it, or just being able to wake up and remember that one line, and then just go from there. And all of a sudden, it just all spills out. And other times, it might be like what was it? You had just said stitching together, about putting together a poem of lines throughout the week. So I kind of do, I create prompts that way, is where I'll have conversations with people, and two specific words or a phrase just come together, and to me it sounds like a prompt. And then from there, that those two words or word will incite a different thought into my head of what those words mean to me, or a memory. More than anything, it's a memory that those words strike in me, and I need to write it down. And so anyways, I like stitching together. I was like, I'm gonna have to make that into a prompt.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I
And
really like
so
what you were saying about the how it seems like they kind of just pour out of you, because I actually recently had that. It's been happening to me a couple of days out of the week where I will have really intense dreams back to back, and then all of a sudden I'll wake up and I don't know how I have I'll have entire like stanzas just floating out of my head, and I'm like, why am I even writing this? I didn't even want to do it. And it's been actually disturbing a lot of my sleep, but it's amazing how it happens. Yeah, it's amazing.
well, I hope you get your book out, so if you need an editor, just hit me up, and if you need a publisher, just hit up Brenda.
Oh,
you
for real.
know.
That's
For
right.
real. You know what? I literally just told my mom yesterday I'm at the point where I'm going to have to get an actual editor and a publisher because I'm about ready to print this. That's funny. Okay, cool.
We're talking then. That's right.
You got the two people you need in the
Yeah.
on the live together.
Right.
The universe has a way of working it out. I love
Yep.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love what Lopal said about that it comes in dreams. It doesn't happen to me often, but there have been times, and they've been like really vivid times where the poem it like jars you awake, you know,
Mhm.
and
Mm-hmm.
there's no other option. It's like you gotta put
Yeah.
paper to pen or audio or whatever the case is
Mm-hmm.
to capture that poem.
So, so one of the poems in that book, Family and Other Problems, that I got out last year, To Whom It May Concern, that was a dream poem that I had to wake up and write it. And I remember when I wrote it, I was crying. But it's because the way I woke up to it was just, it definitely, it just, because of the situation of migrants coming over here to the States and then being treated as criminals, being separated from their families, and so needing to write that poem was necessary. And it really did push me to write it all down. And that, it was an emotion dream. Like, I still remember it, and it literally was people crossing over, looking over at a hillside and, seeing this other land, but there's this like feeling of anxiety of not knowing what could happen, when moving, but then having no choice but to go because going back is not an option. And so, yeah. There's the other process that I have is sometimes I'll write poems and I won't come back to them for a couple of years, sometimes a few years. Last year I wrote a poem that I actually updated yesterday. So I edited it, and I really actually like how I fixed my poem a little bit, just adding more detail to it, really trying to get a little bit further into the topic at hand. And I think I highlighted it somewhere in my post. It might be somewhere on IG. Unfortunately, I don't have the original with me because it was off of my phone. And then I erased it because I was like, well, this one sounds better. So let's see. Yeah, I think I started it with one chance, one paper, but instead I cut out one chance and just wrote one paper, one pen, or one pen, one paper. And actually, I would like to read that poem just so then you can hear how it sounds different from what it was. It was probably maybe like two stanzas than what this is. I added extra words in regards to heart functions, and so which I thought was really great. One pen, one paper, writing my heart's journey, cutting the surface of the past, reaching flesh, dissecting my chambers, clearing the obstruction of clogged regrets. I've held inside, embarrassed of my darkness, cleansing my arteries of that low-density lies you fed me, and entrusting in myself a new beat I'll be pulsating. My heart is not young nor old, she is broken in of itself with experience. My heart is not tarnished, but a relic in this life. She is all emotions without trivial games of false pursuits. Pumping forward, she is adventurous. My heart flowing through aches, sadness, most of all love. She and I are content with every breath. She and I are blessed, overjoyed with gratefulness. For every thump expelling out of our chest, we are alive, singing with every palpitating tremble. My heart is not broken. She lives for I live, celebrating her in the pieces that she is. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm very much more proud of this one than with the other one.
One pen, one paper.
That's beautiful.
Beautiful. Yep. Powerful.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, honestly, the process can vary also depending on mood. I like that I can go back sometimes to old pieces and just expand on them a bit more. But when I get those new pieces, like I think I was telling Kunda, I had one, again, it was a dream poem. The line was, I think it was like mountains at the forefront is what it was. But when I woke up, I wrote it as, she brings her mountains at the forefront. Or like the mountains that she is from at the forefront, something like that. And then it went on forward from there, which, to me is a good poem. And I read it to a friend saying like, I think I still need to work on this, but can I read it to you? And when I read it, I was like, well, maybe it actually works out the way. But I still feel in some ways I want to see what else I can add to it. And so right now, I haven't looked at it this week. I think I looked at it maybe 2 or 3 times, but I haven't yet added anything into it. So there's my editing process just yet. It's like I wrote it down. Now I'm kind of going to wait and see what else during the week might, bring me into writing that back. And during this time, I've already written like 4 other poems in the week that had nothing to do with that poem. But it's definitely other perspectives, which I'm really grateful for. So.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. In fact, I've mentioned before how Paul McCartney's iconic song "Yesterday" the melody came to him in a dream first, and then the lyrics came like 18 months later. So some things do come in dreams. Like this, even this design on my T-shirt, right? It's based on one of the paintings in the background that you see with the heart, and that painting came to me in a dream.
Oh wow!
So cool.
Yeah,
A dream of a
yeah.
painting. That's yeah, that's beautiful because it's like it's almost. I don't remember who I heard say this, but someone said that everything is created twice, once in the mind and then once in the physical. So yeah, that's amazing.
That's
Yeah.
You're all actually jarring a memory in me. I had a dream the other day. There's one poem I wrote that has I don't write songs, I haven't done that, but there's like the end of the poem almost sounds a little melodic the way I read it, the way I present it. But in the dream I was working on something and it was a lot more melodic, like song like, which I was surprised by when I woke up. I'm like, am I being directed now in another direction? So I'm gonna be a lot more mindful now that you guys are talking about it, of those dreams and see what happens, see what flows.
Everything is a song.
Yes.
Yeah. It might be a different genre. We might all be speaking a different genre, but
Yeah,
it's all
that's a prompt. Yeah,
So
that's a prompt.
true.
Yeah.
That's
everything is a song. Yeah.
Like
I love
homework.
that.
I was it's funny.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. What's funny is that dream poem that I had this week, the mountains at the forefront. It's bringing up parts of music, like something about birds chiming in the chorus, and there's something else in there. But anyway, it has to do with music, which is really funny. So I'm like, yeah.
That's
I
cool.
started off writing. My mom was a poet, and she's also a singer, and my dad's a band director, so I always had, and my brother's a writer, so I always had like all of those worlds like always around me. And I think poetry was the thing that helped me become a songwriter. And I've noticed that what happens is I took a long break from poetry to start working on my songwriting. And then I took a break from my songwriting and I got back to my poetry. It kind of just bounces back and forth. Every now and then I get those moments where it seems like they're both, actually, no. For a long time this past year, I was writing a bunch of poems and I wasn't putting anything out because I was like, I need to focus on my music. And I came back this past month or so to, do National Poetry Month stuff because I wanted to, do all the stuff. And then I realized that I was using poetry because I didn't feel like my music was serving me lyrically at that point. But then what happened was I realized I have a rap voice. So now I am able to put it with my music. And it's like, it's really weird how they bounce back and forth, but they almost completely rely on each other sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Mariana, last week, actually, when I interviewed you, you mentioned how their poetry, and I mean, actually, the different art forms are like scaffolding for each other. They scaffold each other. And I love that metaphor. So that's how it is. It sounds like for you, Iris, that they scaffold each other,
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, no, go ahead.
sorry. Oh, I was going to say, I mean, yeah, with writing, that'll support music writing. That'll support lyrics into a song. It just, I love it. I think it's great. You need your band director to direct everybody so then it flows properly. So, like, it's great. It's great to know all that. I think it's fabulous when you have a family doing different things. And then, I'm surprised y'all didn't have a session with each other and be your own band. I don't know if that ever happened at home, but I'm curious, like, did y'all ever get together and jam together? Like, someone create a song and someone sing it?
With my dad, he taught me how to do music. Like, he taught me how to theoretically play music, how to read music notes and how to do the basics with piano. And I've never really done music with him because he's kind of emotionally just not there. But my mom, she's very goofy. So even when she wasn't teaching me how to sing or teaching me how to actually change the tone of my voice, we would do this thing, and we still do it. I'm 24 years. We would do this thing where we would just walk around the house just making up songs out of like everyday, like, I'm not listening to you. Like, she'll go off into these little and she does like a whistle tone that is so crystal clear. So even when we're not trying to make music, we're just goofing around doing it. And then with my brother, because he's a writer, I actually am inspired by him when it comes to writing the most, because he does this thing with Afro horror literature, and it's like so surreal, and it's helped me understand myself a lot more emotionally. So we don't all necessarily come together as a group, but I do have my personal relationship with each person. And honestly, it's just as fulfilling. But I'm very fortunate. Those are definitely my roots with all of the stuff that I love, to be honest.
Yeah, it's total influence. I have a family of musicians too. My uncle was a composer. My dad's brother, my dad has composed songs and stories. My brother's a musician and constantly like practicing bass over and over. I think I can play the bass now because it's just like, in the house all the time. And that definitely, I think, influences our rhythm, the way we express ourselves. And I had an assignment once for one of my poetry classes where we had to write a song, and I had a poem already. I'm like, let me see if it can get adapted. And I asked my brother for help, but man, I'm like sensitive poet, and the musicians sometimes they're like, let's make it better. And I was like, my little heart. So I would need to like, I don't know, definitely be more open to that collaborative, sometimes brutal process, because my brother's been a musician for decades, right? And always the point is to improve the craft, the piece. And poets a lot, we write in isolation, right? Or we develop our poetry in isolation. So we're like, oh, don't get rid of that line, or don't make fun of me, or, you know. And musicians can sometimes be the opposite.
I really understand what you mean by brutal, because I'm in a songwriting and production group, and I have a very specific kind of melancholy voice, and the girls, it's a very dynamic group because it's international, so the girls all come from completely different backgrounds, and they are very pop focused, and I love pop music, but sometimes my poetry or the way that I write, or even sometimes the music I listen to, because I'm from New Orleans, so I also have a lot of brass in me and jazz, and the girls aren't really jazzy, so it's very brutal trying to balance out pop meets alternative jazz meets a poet. It's like a lot. Those girls, I give them hell.
Ah!
It is hell, but oh my gosh, but it makes me more aware of like how dynamic I actually am. I used to think I was really boring until I got with other people and realized, wow. And this isn't to say that they're not cool or anything. It's just saying, like, everything that you think is just your thing and you think it's kind of weird, you eventually learn. This is actually like my superpower.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I look forward to when you get some music out, because I love the rasp in your voice. And so
Oh,
I'm like,
sweet.
ooh, I wanna hear you sing some like Billie Holiday. I know she's more bluesy, but I'm like, I want to hear you do some of that.
Yeah, that would be
You
dope.
know what is so what you I don't know what it is about you, and I don't know what it is about you, but you are hitting my synchronicities, because literally 2 days ago I was practicing a Hindi song because I'm trying to work on the tone of my voice, and I was like, my voice is too raspy to sing Hindi. Hindi has a very clear, almost nasally, if you're feminine, your voice has to be very crystal clear, and I was like, and I come from like I come from the Christina Aguileras and the Nina Simones and stuff. But my mom, she's a whistle toner, so it's like I could do it, and I have done it, but my raspiness is something I'm still trying to like, especially as I'm trying to transition into rap as well. It's like people are not going to take my ass seriously with this cute ass raspy voice. I don't know how.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised. I mean, Billie Holiday just went into music, you know, and like she was wonderful. She made it work. And that's the thing, is you just got to make it work.
Right.
I was going to ask, do you eat a lot of cheese?
Yeah.
Okay, you might be allergic to dairy. And
That's
so
what my mom says, but I'm not taking it. I'm not.
75% of the people around the world are allergic to dairy. So I'm just letting you know this, because it happens. And I have a friend, she got a raspy voice too, and if she let go of the cheese, she wouldn't have such a raspy voice. I love her voice though, so I keep giving her cheese. But you know,
I'm not accepting it. I'm not. No.
well, then you gotta just
claim it. Claim it.
I'm Latina.
Yeah.
Latina. Okay, you know how much cheese Latina.
Well, there's dairy-free cheese now that you could.
Yeah, but Kundan, don't.
Yeah.
It's not cheese, okay? It's not cheese.
It's not
And
cheese ever.
Like, you know, it's very hard to find a good vegan cheese.
That's true.
I've tried a couple. Yeah. I've had a friend try a couple. Daya is probably the closest, but you got to know exactly how to use it. Yeah, know exactly how. Although I would always say you just got to create something like, okay, if you mix sweet potatoes, a little bit of potato, and some carrot, and there's something else in there, and you mix it in a food processor, that will have a consistency of macaroni cheese sauce.
Oh,
which is,
you probably
and it's
need
pretty,
the yeast too, right?
Yes. I think you might have to put a little bit of nutritional yeast in it, but it's good. That I tried it once. I made vegan mac and cheese, used that sauce, and it was very tasty for me. Loved it. So there are ways, but you know, when you got to have your cheese, you got to have your cheese. So.
Yeah.
There is one singer that
Yeah.
I like named Sam. I think it's Sampa. I don't know if it's Sampa or Sampha, but I always get compared to him a lot, especially with my songwriting. And he reminds me of that raspy sound that it's okay if it's raspy because it's like it's so beautiful with how he sings. He's a phenomenal musician. I'm still trying to figure out if I want to play. It's like I want to definitely play around with tone because you have people like Kendrick Lamar who he plays up with his voice so much. It's actually insane how he can literally. Here's the thing. I really love world building in like any form of art I'm doing, whether it's poetry or songwriting or even just visual art. I love being able to create different characters, and it's weird because my brother's a writer, and I've always been a writer, but I think that for a while, there's this thing called the silent child. It's an archetype of your throat chakra, and I have come to realize through my training with my spiritual teachers, my throat chakra is very blocked, like very, very blocked, and naming myself Iris was the way that kind of helped me kind of break out of it. And interestingly enough, now I feel like I'm more confident as a singer. It's really weird. It's really, really weird.
So why Iris?
Oh, so it's a few things. So iris is, for one thing, a flower that I really love, the white iris, white blooming iris. Iris is also the name of a goddess who's the goddess of rainbows. The iris is also one of the parts of your eye that help you, I think, actually process what you're actually seeing. And then Flower Bomb is the name of a perfume that I like, but it's also a testament to the fact that I'm very sweet and very nice and very cute, but I tend to explode emotionally when I'm really pushed to my limits. And I think my poems kind of suggest that a lot. So, yeah, yeah.
Well, I think definitely me and you need to link up. I love everything that you just said right now. So I was like, ooh,
Yeah.
there's this one person, I'll find out what band she's in. She collaborates a lot with a lot of people. I know she's based in Arizona. But anyway, she has a tattoo on her throat.
Oh,
And
wow.
I don't see a lot of women with tattoos on their throats. But when she plays the xylophone, she'll play the guitar, but she's a singer. And when she sings, she has a raspy voice. She sings very powerfully. And, she goes with it. And she's made her own music. I mean, she's a traveling artist and she'll go about in different locations and she's wonderful. So I think definitely with you now naming yourself and now it's just, pushing yourself from those I wannas to you're doing it. You're going for it.
Yeah.
And I just want to say one more thing. Brenda's a singer too, by the way.
Oh,
She
I didn't even
sings.
say that.
Yes, I've heard you sing, Brenda. I've heard you sing.
Every
You
now
sing.
and
You
then
know how to sing.
songs come out in poems. Yes, it's true. I
Yes.
sample.
Yeah.
I
I would like to
sample.
hear. Yeah, I'd like to
Yeah,
hear
Yeah.
that.
I sing in poems too.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love hearing
Yeah.
that in poetry. Yep. And
I
I
love
love
when
I
poems.
love what you said about the silent child. That's so relatable. Much of what I battled with putting my book out, and I'm 46, so like it took me a minute because I don't think I read poetry out loud for 20 years, so that throat chakra
Wow.
was
Oh,
blocked. So I did a lot of work and I recorded myself. I would record myself practicing reading poems out loud for like Zoom open mics and IG and stuff like that. And it's like night and day because now I'm like, give me that mic. And now, I don't want to have like the throat chakra corruption of like verbal diarrhea. You know what I mean? Because I think I had been there for a
Oh, yeah,
minute.
that's the other extreme. Yeah.
Right. Like silence, stuffing. So now I'm just ever seeking that balance. I'm gonna have to look up the silent child. That's for real. And a lot of people that have art trauma, be it poets, singers, the silencing, and you can look, therapy is a big help, especially when you're looking at family of origin stuff, where you were raised, how you were raised. I'm the youngest child in my family, so it was always like shh, 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 And that impacts us, right? Impacts our work.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah. It also makes me think about the different trauma responses. So most people have heard about the fight, the flight, and the freeze, right? What is less well known is the fawn trauma response. So fawn is when we end up, people pleasing because we had to please our guardians or parents as a child, and then that carries over, right? So it's almost like some people have a combination of the freeze and the fawn. I think that might be the silent child archetype, a combination of those two.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, yeah. I like how you put that together. That makes a lot of sense. I resonate with that a lot, honestly.
Yeah. So would anybody like, since we have three people, including an editor, would anybody like to share an unfinished piece that they want to receive feedback on how to finish?
Let me see. Let me try and find one.
Yeah, I've got several unfinished pieces.
Let's do it. Let's do
Yeah,
it.
Let's
I'm
do it.
like, ah! There was a lot of manuscript cutting. A lot of things ended up on the floor, but I don't throw things away. I'm like version 1, version 2, version 3. I'm a poetry
Exactly.
hoarder.
It's like the leftovers, and then you turn it into another type of food, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like you
Exactly.
can't, unless it's completely spoiled, that's not going in the trash.
Uh-huh.
Put it in the garden. Put it in the garden.
Uh-huh.
So here's one. It's short for me. And I keep struggling with like how to name this poem and word order. Prayers can be poems. Prayers can be poems, can be ravens who fly overhead. An unkindness of 17. Come in slow, grace-filled, they fly overhead in 2s and 3s. There's 4 more, then the mad rush, energy directed, focused, hungry, tar-black feathered shine in the morning sun, legs tucked close to body, prostrate, claim territory with their wings, make wind, make sound, swoosh, 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 the ardent insistence. This is how we pray. So that's a
Wow.
piece I've been
That's a
trying to
flying
figure
poem.
out. Like, poems can be prayers, prayers can be poems, and I'm still like, yeah. Any feedback would be great.
So you're trying to name it, right? You're trying to find a name for this?
Right.
I was almost kind of thinking, is it wordy enough that you could create, you know how some poems create shapes?
Mm-hmm.
And so since you're describing a raven, right, or a crow, I forget which one,
Raven.
crow, right? A raven.
Mm-hmm.
Could you shape a feather of of a raven's feather looks like?
I can try.
With
Cool.
the words you have.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and that might be in a way where you can shape the words, like if you want to emphasize certain words or so in the poem, just to create that shape of that feather.
Mm-hmm.
If you can create a raven, right, in a particular form that you want it to be, whether it's flying, right, whether it's landing somewhere, but yeah, anyways, that's what I'm kind of thinking. I was like, what if you made a shape with that poem, and then I don't know why I was thinking more like a murder of crows, kind of thing, but kind of flipping that murder to being like, this is, I don't know, a prayers. Some reason murder was in there, but I was thinking crows. So
right, yeah. And I hear that they call like the grouping of ravens an unkindness of ravens versus murder of crows. And that poem came out. I literally was going on, leaving the house for my walk. It was early morning, and from the east, our house faces east, was this lineup of ravens, just blasting in our direction. It was wild, and I'm like, oh, that's why they call it an unkindness, because it was pretty overwhelming. Not that I've seen them be I've seen them be unkind when they're stealing eggs from other birds, right? But it was they gotta eat too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for the feedback.
Yeah. They can be very fierce. Like one of my favorite stories is, and this is true, it actually happened. So the Catholic Church, the Pope was trying to celebrate peace, and he flew a flock of doves, right? And then the ravens just like struck it down, you know. And then there's a caption of that by an indigenous organization that says, uh, you know, the truth is, you know, being unveiled by the ravens, and that, you know, the fake love is being destroyed, like, you know. And yeah, and then the caption was Christ and indigenous was the caption, because a lot of indigenous people worship crows, including us Hindus, right? As our ancestors, for example. And I love that, you know, that image of the crows doing that, and that's what like the term unkindness of ravens remind me of. It's almost like they have like a fierce honesty to them as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
in fact, since that day, actually, I think they did it 2 or 3 more times, I think. And then it kept happening. So now, every year, they no longer do the flock of doves, they just put out white balloons.
Which is
Wow.
so bad for the environment, Pope. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that interpretation, and
yeah.
that call out. I remember seeing that, and yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely, like the just the inauthentic, you know, when there's so much history of genocide and ongoing
Exactly.
corruption. Absolutely, yeah, that was a good call out.
Mm-hmm.
What
Yeah,
about a raven's prayer?
Mm,
I like
You
that.
I
know,
like that
Yeah.
too.
I was gonna try and play with the unkindness or so, and I was like, well, kind of prayer, would that work? But I was like, no. And then maybe just playing with like the thesaurus and working with the antonyms, right,
Yeah,
of both kind and unkindness, kindness. But I don't know, Raven's prayer maybe might be it.
I like
You
that.
know,
Yeah, prayer
since you
ravens.
described.
I like that a
Mhm.
lot. Thank you.
And and the poem also makes me think about that. The poem itself makes me think about, especially because of the original title, like, you know, prayers can be poems, because it takes me in a different direction when you say poems can be prayers. Like,
Mm,
you know, it has a different meaning. But when you said prayers can be poems, that when that was the title, you know, poetry is often like full of metaphor and a direction to it, right? As well as it's an expression of your emotions. So, so it's like saying prayer as that, right? And so when that was the title, like it made me think about prayer not as something that creates an external result, because I don't really have any control over that, but prayer as something that can bring me my own internal clarity that would help me take the action that I need to create the external result. So that it's almost like prayer as a co-creation with the divine, like the term
Mm-hmm.
God helps those who help themselves, like that phrasing. Especially when you started talking about how, you know, the ravens would, you know, go into these directions and they would like clear the pathway. You know, there were like lines that make me think about that. So that's
Mm-hmm.
where it goes for me, like the poem as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
I love hearing how
Beautiful.
it resonates with other people because it takes on a life of its own.
Hmm.
Yeah, thank you for that. I so appreciate that word.
I could feel the flightiness of the poem. It felt very, maybe it's also just how you expressed it, but it felt like it literally was a poem in flight. It felt like it had a moment where it went up into the sky, it hovered for a second, and then just dropped down. It was like I could
Mm.
feel it. It was good. It was good.
That's a prompt right there, a poem in
Ooh,
flight. Actually,
fill
that can
with
be the title.
prompts.
How about a prayer in flight?
Yeah.
Ooh,
I like that
Yes.
too.
that's good too.
I
All of
like
these
that.
are good. Yeah, love that prompt.
Okay.
All
Um,
right.
and it's
Would
weird
anybody
because
else like to?
I see crow. There's a crow that is perched at my outside my window all the time, and I just think if it's my friend. It's my friend at this point. Like I just every morning I wake up, I say, "Hey, crow," and then the crow just bop bop, and I'm just it's that. That's it. And sometimes when I'm watching if I'm getting a reading, if I'm giving myself a reading, or if I'm watching readings, sometimes when certain moments make the most sense to me, the crow will literally at that exact moment, like, bark, bark, and I'll be like, okay, I hear you. So I really, I think that's part of why I really, really like it, is because birds are, especially because my name is Mimi Bird. That's my nickname. So yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love
Yeah.
birds. Yeah, I think they definitely are our friends. The neighborhood
Yeah.
birds, 100%.
Even the crows.
Even the crows, ravens, hawks. Yep.
I have a poem I could do that I'm still trying to work on.
Okay.
I don't know what the title will be. It's a poem that I started a while ago for someone, but then I revised it for someone else. So I don't know what I'm gonna call it because of that, but I really like where it's going. Right now the title that I'm considering is maybe Revised Love. My type of ocean consists of waves of me running into shores of you. Tragedies inspired miracles, and miracles became visions unto. I tasted his exuberance from my sweetness, a tit for tat of reverence from each other's divine. The royalty in both of our lions rejoiced, but not without oftentimes seeing reflections through rose-tainted glasses. I'm tickled pink and tinted completely in love with myself, and as an extra offering from God, him as well. I stretch so wide it seems chemical trails imitate me, ribboning blues and skies commemorating my eternal homage to myself. You emulate vibrations so well, you convince me that it is my birthright to receive them. Your revision of my heart sick revives me slowly. You send me into a frenzy. My friends see how obvious my glow is, but body broken by weak men who taint this canvas fades away slowly. How is it possible you make me feel the glow in my darkness? Not a steady yellow that peeks out of what's painted black, but black painted in bloom without being steadfast and without shame. You remind me of my own beauty when time slips through your tongue. With each second you speak my name. And I grow myself as boundless, lighter in weight. With each moment you fill my tipsy.
Ooh.
Wow.
Probably the most romantic shit I've actually, I wrote that.
Yeah, it's
It
very
almost
sweet and
convinces you I might
thoughtful.
be straight, but that's not the case.
It was colorful. It's a colorful poem. I saw so many colors, and you had me thinking about Iris the goddess, because you talked about the rainbow earlier. I don't know, maybe something with that in the title might be interesting, because it can capture like the vibrancy of your
Well,
piece. And
I
then I
have
love the
one
last
that I'm
line.
working.
What was that?
Oh, what you said? I was saying that well, I have a poem that I'm doing called Blooming Iris, but I have no idea. Yeah, color has been a really big thing since I've been falling in love again. It's been very much a thing that I've been paying way more attention to than usual. And this person evokes a lot of colors that I normally wouldn't notice. It's really beautiful, honestly. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah, everything's more
That's
vibrant.
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
someone
was
was
thinking,
saying
Yeah,
my last line.
I'm
What
so
was it?
happy for you.
Yeah, read
I
that
was
last
thinking
line.
of fire. I was thinking of fireflies, especially when you said glowing in your darkness. I was like, it's like, and then you brought up like buoyancy and lightedness, and I was like, yeah, fireflies are pretty light,
That's
Yeah.
true.
you know.
Beautiful.
So and so, I mean, you don't get to see them here in California, but you know, I know they exist in other parts of the United States, especially in the South. So
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I don't remember the last time I saw one, but I mean, I don't feel like there's much of a difference between a moth and a firefly, because to me, they both really are addicted to light in a beautiful way. And it's kind of like being, it's weird. It's being like a moth, but having a little bit more of this aesthetic, if that makes any sense. But did someone say they liked the very last line?
Yeah, can you read the last two lines?
Lighter in weight with each moment you feel my tipsy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's oof. Yeah, there's like an air quality to it. I'm agreeing with Mariana about the firefly and the moth. That well, you mentioned the moth. That's I actually put those two creatures together too. There's just such magical elements about both of them, and your poem is very magical. You know, magical and vibrant, and yeah, it's making me feel like I need to fall in love again. It's giving me hope.
Yeah.
Proceed with caution. Proceed with
Correct.
caution.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you, it's been quite a whirlwind doing all this. And this is probably one of my most romantic, lovey-dovey poems that I've written in a really long time. I never really was the kind of person who really wrote about. I'm always the one that writes about heartbreak, and if you watched any of the other Instagram lives I've done, it's constantly a topic. I think that's probably why it comes off so strongly, because it does feel like a completely new world that I'm entering, and so it is very fresh for me. Especially because I'm so young. I don't have a lot of romantic experience prior to this. So, yeah.
So I actually wrote a sort of love letter to the firefly, which is actually also a love letter to nature itself, because I learned while reading this book, World of Wonders by Amy Nezukumar Tatil. I can't even pronounce her last name. She's Filipino Indian, and the title of the book is World of Wonders in Praise of Fireflies, Whale Sharks, and Other Astonishments. And in that book, she revealed that, so a lot of you are saying that, you see less of the fireflies. And what's actually happening is that the frequency of their flashing is becoming lower every year, meaning the pauses between their flashing is becoming wider and wider. And we may, there may come a time when children grow up without ever seeing fireflies. So that's why I wrote that poem. It's called Stars in Our Blood. And I wrote, and I connected to our connection to stars as well, which is an amazing fact that I can reveal after I read the poem. So would you all like to hear the poem?
Yes, please, definitely.
All right. This is called... No.
Love the title already.
Same.
Oh, here we go. It's called Stars in Our Blood, From Visual Silence to Victory. I carry stars in my blood, their light that enters my eyes now began their long journey. Around the same time, my ancestors first came up with their own astronomy. Just like the way colonizers see stars as only small and twinkling and cute and nothing more, they see me as small and shiny, wanting me to be silent, both audibly and visually, blending into their bland society, stripped of all color. The same way, they have forced fireflies to become visually silent, their collective light dimming every year, the pauses between their flashing becoming wider every year, wider and wider every year. Their visual spaces snuffed out, their visual speech becoming less and less, with more spaces in between their flashing, as they don't have enough strength to be lashing back. But actually, stars speak so fiercely in their own visual speech, the light of their fire can still be seen, despite the millions of years it took to reach my mind, because stars are actually more giant than dwarf. They speak so loudly, yet so lovingly. They offered their treasure of iron for my blood a long time ago, which is why I live today. I hope someday I will be able to pass on this love to the fireflies so that they may speak as much as they used to and restore their and our magic once again on earth together.
Mm.
Oh,
The way you did that. Oh my God. I've never heard someone compare the, oh my God, the nature of fireflies and the way that they work to white supremacy. I've never, your mind, I stand. Because that to me is like the Afro surrealist world building that I've been trying to play around with my brother for our works. That's what I'm talking about. Like, I've never even thought of it that way. Your mind is exquisite. That's it. That's all I got to say. I'm going to mute myself.
yeah.
I can talk.
Yeah, poem done. The poem is beautiful
Take my
and
pen.
masterful. Yeah. Ooh.
That
That
was
was
amazing.
so good. The way you make connections, the importance of protecting. And there was a line you put toward the end where you said, I forget how you said it, but it was essentially like to the magic of fireflies. What was that line? How did you?
I said,
Because I will not remember
restored
it correctly.
something about restored. That's so that they may speak as much as they used to and restore their and our magic once again on earth together.
That's right. Restore. So yeah, 100%. That's just, you made so many connections in this piece, so many important connections. And, you know, in the wake of, we just had Earth Day, right? A couple of days ago.
Exactly.
It completely just, yeah, powerful. Blown away. Love this poem. You're making me want to do an anthology, because we need another anthology for fireflies, you know, with these kinds of connections, with all of these poems. Beautiful.
Yes.
Like the
Firefly anthology. Yeah.
I would make one.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, it's okay. I would make this one suggestion. For some reason, the words small and twinkling and cute. If there's a way we can find one word to bring that together, right? I still love twinkling, but then for some reason the word glimmer is what comes into my head, right? Because we're, again, you're saying that the conqueror, right, is or the colonialist is seeing the fireflies only as this one thing, and a very minimal thing, right? And then when you bring up stars, and how they're so great even from such a distance away, right? Because also no one can colonize a star because it's so far away.
So far away and so big and giant. Yeah. Yeah, they're actually giant, but they see them as small because you can only see it as small from this distance, right? Yeah.
And so, but that would be my only suggestion, is then
That's actually a good idea.
Condense that word again, and try and get a word that'll combine all three of those together. Just because of making that big comparison of fireflies and stars, but yet they're all, you know, they're both great parts of our world that we need to give them that equal, not power, but yes, but it's like acknowledgement of their power, of their strength, of their beauty. So
yeah.
Oh gosh, that was
Yeah, so you mentioned about me making different connections, and that's because my process literally involves like making a mind map first, right, of different topics. And I don't always physically draw it like I did with that one, which is a different poem, but like sometimes I do it in my head as well. And this is what I did with this poem. Like for me, the connecting line between these fireflies and the stars is this line, right? Because it's actually based on actual science. Like when I sat they speak so loudly and yet so lovingly. They offered that treasure of iron for my blood a long time ago, which is why I live today. And that is actual science. So I watched a TED Talk, which the title is Everything is Connected by Tom Chi, and he gave 3 facts, and this is based on the first fact. And he wanted to show that we're all interconnected, but from a science-based, fact-based perspective, not a spiritual or metaphysical way, right? And when I heard that, I'm like, oh my God, the science itself is so poetic, because what he said was, so there is iron in the hemoglobin molecule, which is the molecule that carries the oxygen in our blood, right? And that iron is right in the heart of the hemoglobin molecule. And that molecule starts off in the heart, right? So there's iron in the heart of our hearts, basically, right? But where is iron manufactured? There's apparently only one place in the entire universe where iron is manufactured, which is supernovas and the making of stars. Hence the line stars in our blood. But it goes even deeper than that. Like, I was like, okay, that's already mind-blowing. But then he went further. He said, how are supernovas made? They're made from the collisions of galaxies. Mm-hmm. So there's not just iron in our, not just stars in our blood. There's entire galaxies in the heart of our hearts.
Ooh. Mm. Ooh. That gave me the chills right now.
Yeah.
So many poetry prompts in what you just said. I'm going to go back and write poems for all of this. Yes.
Especially when you consider the word universe, that's literally you. Like when you consider manifestation and the you know, the how things work in the 3D and how it comes, how a lot of it responds from what we have in space. It's literally just responding to our own energy, and we're giving it energy. It's literally bouncing back and forth. It's literally within you. That I love. I really, really love that. Just very, oh gosh.
I'm gonna have to bring it around. You said earlier the worlds around me when you were describing about your family members, right? Being all different musicians. And then now we're speaking about universes and galaxies within ourselves. So I wrote down the worlds around me as a prompt, right? To kind of describe all these different people that are around in my life and just like the different perspectives, right? But now it's like that will bring it all back around to the world within me or the world within us, all right? So anyways, I just wanted to bring that all together.
All right, so what anybody's going to another round this time, just doing your finished pieces, one finished poem each.
I'll probably go because you know, I think you know very well, my poems tend to be very long. And I really don't want to exhaust y'all. I would rather go second to last or just last, okay?
All right, so let I guess Brenda go first.
Yeah, I can jump in. Since we are finishing up, you know, the last week of Poetry Month, National Poetry Writing Month, I wrote a poem called Poetic Voice. That's in my book. I'll show you guys my book. There's my book. This is my tattered copy.
Oh, I love the cover.
Yeah, great. That's a beautiful art piece by Felipe Jimenez. So this one was about the process of gathering this book, making the manuscript come to life. Poetic Pollitos. I gathered these poems together like baby chicks. I pulled faded paper from a light teal plastic bin I bought at Big Lots. Almost forgot I had packed these pollitos away when I relocated back to South Whittier from San Jose. These pollitos were musty, feathers missing in places. They had seen the inside of a U-Haul, a storage facility, until they washed up on the dusty shores of Papi's garage. Squirreled them into a mini motorhome, waited for winter to arrive, and sneezed when I came across them again. Paper cuts emerged as I read word and rhyme. Buried deep under sermons, prayers and theological papers that carried my voice these last several years. Some made me sigh, and some made my skin ripple in places. Some made me say, Oh, my Lord, I am a poet. How did I forget this piece of myself? My prayers to the holy on high became comical. Show me the way, guide me, what's my purpose now? Why did you call me out? I looked at my pen, which had always been in my hand, even stabbed my palm once with lead when I was a kid. Blood flowed and left this punctuated tattoo. The calloused fingers, the piles of journals I know other poets hoard, a collection of audio memos. Hear the beat in the lines, the honey in my tone, the bitter bile like my friend Mars wrote long ago. I pulled these particular poems out of a manila envelope that had been sealed with my llanto. A violin breathed in and out in the distance, a story I choked down with blood and body, with body and blood, a story of first love, heartache, and choices. My cuarentona heart melted in places. Calcification had halted the flow. The valve broadened as compassion babbled, a river gentle over pebbles and branches. I began to feed these pollitos, build them a new coop, secured the fence against gavilanes, coyotes, y gatos, swept up the excrement and fertilized the avocado tree, contracted the muscles that had atrophied. I heard piano chimes that have not been heard in years from my sister's fingertips, quickly keeping time. The world became right in places. I have always been this poet. I have always owned this song.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Yes, I love it.
Did you say you heard a violin breathing or sighing in and out?
A violin breathed in and out in the distance.
Oh my God.
I love that line too.
'Cause
And also ripples and whispers.
that's what it feels like they're doing. I thought I was the only one who thought that. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
And well, and the
Wow,
fact that you
that
guys,
was
you and
beautiful.
Kundan named, I forget the word because you're the first people that have mentioned that where I'm hearing it.
Mm.
Where you see the
I
colors.
have to.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
sense of
Synesthesia.
synesthesia. Yes.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah,
I was
maybe.
like, it does feel like the violin is actually breathing in and out. Oh gosh, yeah, that hit me really hard. I loved it.
Thank you. Yeah, I was a violin player as a young person.
Ooh.
But like I haven't gotten my hands on a violin in many, many years, so I wonder how it would be. But when I was editing this poem, and probably because I was going back to literally I was in my dad's garage, which, filled with memories. That feeling, I think I came across my bow, the violin bow. And I do remember when I would play, it did feel, you're breathing along with the instrument, obviously, right? Keeping time and rhythm and such. Yeah, that was a nice edit. I felt like, oh, and my skin literally rippled. I remember, and even now, like reading that line, I can feel the chills and the ripple on my skin again, which always for me feels like confirmation.
Yeah, definitely.
Be it for myself or when I'm hearing other poets, I'm like, ooh, the truth is being said right now.
Right.
Like the tingles, right?
The tingles, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
little ASMR.
Yeah. And it's so full of visual images. I feel like this is the type of poem that would look so good if it was animated, like an animated poem. You see those on YouTube sometimes, right? And it would be perfect if an animation artist did that for you. Like,
I need to find them. Please, if anyone knows anyone, send them my way. I'm looking for artists.
I do a little bit of animation, but I'm still a beginner. Yeah.
I'm mostly graphic designing, like painting and visual art.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I love
animation.
the
I could literally see that violin literally breathing. Like I could imagine how it would look in an animation, especially if you would have like as the bow goes across the strings, there are like tiny musical notes that kind of float away from the violin, but then when the bow goes backwards, the notes come back as well. Oh, that would be
I love that. More skin rippling. Love that.
Yeah. You were great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love that
Okay.
too. Yeah, and also Brenda, you said earlier about how you record your poems and you hear it first, and I think for me that would be a good way for me to edit my poems as well when I go into the verification stage out of the 4 stages of creativity, right? Because for example, that poem, Cooking a Poem, when I first finished writing it, I thought it was done, but when I went on different lives and started reading it out loud, I was like, oh, I need to change this little word right here,
Right.
add a little word right there. And it only occurred to me after I read it out loud, you know.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's when you read it out loud, when you hear it back, things, can be shown to you that can be help improve the poem.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And actually, this entire conversation so far, especially what Iris said about having, musician family and what Mariana said about, scaffolding the different art forms, I almost want to write a follow-up poem to my poem, How to Find Your Passion, would be about how even passions that you have given up
Mm.
or sort of don't do very much can be a scaffold for your main passion, like how your violin, even though you gave it up, still shows up in your poetry.
Right.
So that's a good poetry prompt right there,
Oh, I love
that
that.
topic. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. The scaffolding.
Mm-hmm.
Please do not let go of that violin line. Oh gosh.
It's
Because
so
especially because
beautiful.
I'm a singer, and one of the
Yeah.
things that I've been playing around with, especially because one of my favorite videos that's going around right now is Mariah Carey during her master class. She's showing people how to imitate violins and whistle tone. It's beautiful.
Ooh.
Mm.
So
Oh, I
yeah,
love
like
that.
especially as a singer, I always feel very connected to string or brass images. Not images, but instruments, because for one thing with brass, usually you have to use your own breath to get the sound out. But then also with wind or string instruments, a lot of times breath control, even for string players, you have to pace yourself a certain way to get that sound to properly be released.
Mm-hmm.
um, it just brought me back to like being in school and being taught by my teachers how to like properly breathe before I sing something. Oh my god, it was beautiful. I can't let go of it.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love the violin.
Mm-hmm.
See, now I need to go to the master class and go see Mariah Carey.
Me too.
Talk about
Yeah.
that.
It's totally
So,
worth it.
mhm.
Totally worth it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm gonna share this one poem, and
Mm-hmm.
then I actually will have to leave.
Okay.
Um, and so it's I'm titling it "Keep the Faith, No Investigation Necessary."
Ooh.
Ooh.
Breaking boundaries, leading me by the hand, taking me over the thresholds of your worldly heavenly creations. I kneel, but you raise me up, elevating me into higher awakenings of the magnanimous worlds I hold inside myself. Leading me upon an altar, you place me, but neither you kneel before me. You stand beside me, stand with me, and the power we wield inside our hemispheres releases, sparking, igniting new beginnings, spanning and expanding beyond intergalactic planes. We are the Big Bang, the God particle man has been searching for.
Oh,
Damn. Yes.
Wow.
oh, that was that was like especially because I have a lot of poems where I use images and references to altars, especially with unrequited. I think it's unrequited love. Um, just the
Mm.
idea that you are going to this sacred entity to offer something and hope for something in return, and in that sense, it almost feels like it's higher than you, but really, it's a collaboration of powers and energies. And the way you said, I don't know if it was the exact line, but you said, it's like I kneel before you, or you kneel before me, but you raise me up. You know, I don't know how you said it, but
I
that's
kneel, but you raise me up.
yeah, yeah. That's what love is. That's what magic is. It's like you are,
Yeah, that equal power,
yeah. I loved it.
Right. You
And
said you
y'all
would
Thank
can
you.
see I'm
stand
a
beside me.
fangirl. Yeah, it was great. I loved it.
Yeah, I love that. It's almost like a magical spell or incantation for a love that's with equitable power, interconnected, neither dominant nor submissive, but it's like equal, and they have, yeah, it's an equitable relationship, and I love that.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that too. I love that you connected that love to this, the concept also of spirituality, the God particle, I think you said.
Mm-hmm.
We stand together, yeah, so many beautiful images in that. And I always love your voice and your tone, Mariana, when you read your
Oh, thank you.
pieces. Yeah, it's just always so, like, there's a tenderness and a power always in your pieces. Thank you
Hmm.
so
Oh, I
much.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's both, and which I love, the
Right.
tenderness and the power. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
That poem
yeah.
like beautifully illustrated what I think co-creation is,
Hmm.
especially for those who are interested in things like spell work or manifestation. Um, it's it was great because it's like this mutual. I think it's like we were just talking about earlier with like this mutual reverence for power and energy. Um,
Hmm.
it was great, and I agree. I love your voice a lot.
Oh, well, I'm digging everybody's voices over here, so we gotta continue loving ourselves and expressing ourselves as much as possible. And so, I definitely relate a lot to the silent child as well. I always have the struggle with the question of, what do you want? I'm like, everything, and I don't know. So,
What you
but
want wants you.